Today, Gaza was rocked by explosions as Israel intensified its attacks in the region. Israeli troops continue to carry out offensives against Hamas militants with determination. The Israeli army has completely surrounded the city with tanks and infantry, as announced by Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, confirming the presence of troops in central Gaza. The Israel Defense Forces have carried out attacks throughout the city from different directions, north and south, combining ground, air, and naval operations with full coordination. Israeli soldiers are deployed on foot alongside armored vehicles and tanks, supported by military engineers in the field. Its main objective is to locate and neutralize Hamas terrorists in Gaza, attacking their structures, commanders, bunkers, and communication centers. Israeli ground forces have managed to open a corridor in central Gaza that extends towards the Mediterranean coast. This movement has divided the coastal strip in two, surrounding and penetrating Gaza City, the population center in the north and the main stronghold of Hamas. Despite the ongoing fighting, Israel has dedicated 4 midday hours over the past few days to allow more people to follow evacuation directives to the south. However, despite these efforts, hundreds of thousands of people remain in northern Gaza, either unable or unwilling to risk the journey. Tragically, some of those who attempted to flee last month lost their lives along the way, some even after reaching the southern part of the territory. Others now find themselves living on the streets or in makeshift camps. Today, the militants find themselves caught in a dire situation amid the conflict in Gaza. In a shocking development, Israeli soldiers managed to capture Yahya Sinwar, the top Hamas leader in Gaza, inside his underground shelter. Sinwar's arrest stunned Hamas militants, leading some of his followers to surrender for fear of reprisals. Although Israeli soldiers only managed to capture the leader, this triggered the surrender of several lower-ranking followers. The army celebrated this achievement as a significant victory. The militants, worried about being branded as traitors, reaffirmed the success of the strategy of pursuing Hamas leaders, demonstrating once again the effectiveness of the Israel Defense Forces strategy of targeting Hamas officials. Following this achievement, Israeli soldiers redoubled their efforts with renewed enthusiasm to confront the enemy. The Israel Defense Forces carried out intense attacks in the northern Gaza Strip throughout the night, inflicting heavy damage on Hamas infrastructure both above and below ground. The attacks allegedly resulted in the elimination of Hamas field commanders who were hiding in underground tunnels. These attacks were so forceful that they caused considerable damage to the terrorist infrastructure, impacting both its surface and its underground structures. Hamas has described the recent attacks as intense shelling. According to their claims, more than 200 people lost their lives as a result of these attacks. However, the figures provided by the Ministry of Health for this militant group cannot be verified, and do not make clear distinctions between the civilian population and the combatants. Separately, the Israel Defense Forces reported eliminating more than a dozen Hamas members, including high-ranking commanders at the battalion and brigade level, since the start of the conflict. It was stated that the loss of these fighters had hampered the terrorist group's operations. The army also stressed that ground troops managed to capture a Hamas enclave overnight, encompassing observation posts, training areas, and underground tunnels. The soldiers reported that a considerable number of Hamas operational members lost their lives during the capture of the area, and that Hamas field commanders were also killed in other clashes on the ground. These casualties have significantly weakened Hamas's decision-making capacity. During that period, the military reported carrying out more than 450 attacks on various targets belonging to the Never organization in the Gaza Strip. These attacks included the neutralization of tunnels, military bases, surveillance points, and anti-tank missile launch sites. One of the airstrikes resulted in the elimination of Hamas's Special Operations Chief Jamal Musa. In addition, the death of Asfer, leader of the Deir al-Balah battalion of Hamas, along with other leaders of the Central Camps Brigade involved in sending terrorists from the elite NCBA forces of Never to Israel during the October 7th attack. These casualties generated significant momentum among Israeli soldiers. The Israel Defense Forces revealed that Asfer was detained by Israel from 1992 to 1998 due to his involvement in several attacks targeting Israel and its communities. Despite the damage suffered by the actions inside Gaza, the Israeli army maintained its intensive preparation. Israeli military spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagar issued a recent statement stating that so far, Israeli forces have managed to destroy more than 100 tunnels belonging to Hamas. Hagar also praised the efforts of the United Arab Emirates and Egypt to erect field hospitals away from the active conflict zone. This is expected to have a positive impact by progressively decreasing the number of victims treated by the Israel Defense Forces at the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City, which Hamas alleges is run by them. Hagar emphasized, "We are committed to taking all necessary measures to eradicate Hamas terrorists." Meanwhile, global attention toward Israel continues to increase. However, the Israeli authorities continue with their actions without paying much attention to these reactions. Sporadic shell attacks from Lebanon on the border with Israel have spread fear among the population. Yesterday, U.S. Special Envoy Amos Hochstein urged Lebanese political and military leaders to ensure that the conflict between Israel and Hamas does not escalate into a regional conflict. There are concerns that other Iranian-backed factions in the country could join the conflict, further aggravating this situation. As expressed by Biden administration officials and local media reports, Hochstein emphasized to government officials and senior Lebanese military commanders the urgency of restoring tranquility on the border between Lebanon and Israel. Hochstein's unexpected visit to Beirut comes at a time of growing concerns about a possible expansion of the conflict. Lebanon-based Hezbollah and Tehran, the group's main backer, have warned about the possibility of joining the ongoing conflict, raising additional concerns about the escalation of the confrontation. Hezbollah announced this week that a total of 63 of its fighters have lost their lives in clashes with Israel since the start of the war a month ago. Vedant Patel, spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, indicated that the message conveyed by Hochstein was clear. The United States does not want to see this crisis spread to Lebanon, a consequence of Tehran's support in strengthening Hezbollah's reserves in the territory. Lebanese in recent years and Western security officials show serious concern about the strategic threat posed by precision missiles in possession of the terrorist organization, classified as such by the United States. Furthermore, Israel has issued a strong statement. According to statements by a CFDI spokesperson to the media in Al-Arbe, the humanitarian corridor in the northern part of Gaza is now open for those seeking refuge to the south. Yesterday, Abich Adra provided information indicating that the road that crosses from north to south in the enclave will be safe for passage between 10 and 14 local time. The statement released by Adra said, "To ensure your safety, it is strongly recommended to consider moving south. Beyond the Gaza Valley, it is of utmost importance that the inhabitants of the northern Gaza Strip leave the area as soon as possible, given that it has been identified as a high-risk combat area." This council joins the many people who, in response to recent calls, have chosen to move south, adding hundreds of thousands of displaced people in recent days. Yesterday, Egyptian authorities reported that, since the start of evacuations from the Gaza Strip a week ago, a total of 683 injured people, including Palestinians, Egyptians, and citizens of other countries, were treated through the border crossing. From Rafah. This day marked the highest number recorded so far, officials said. Among those transported were 15 wounded Palestinians, who were taken to hospitals in the area of the crossing for treatment. Since the beginning of the evacuations, a total of 1,893 people who are not Egyptian citizens have passed through Gaza towards Egypt. Approximately 100 Egyptians and Palestinians managed to cross during this period. We appreciate your continued monitoring.